Now, I want to talk a little bit about Secretary of Defense or War, depending on what you want to call him, Pete Hegseth, because he was testifying before Congress yesterday about the war against Iran. And you'll be shocked to hear that his conduct was unbecoming. I want to show you a quick example. Let's go to video 1.
You said just a few moments ago, Mr. Secretary, we control the strait. But it's clear that reopening the Strait of Hormuz for commercial traffic eludes us, in no small part because Iran retains a robust stockpile of cheap, lethal Shahed drones, and they are getting help from our adversaries in rebuilding them. What is your plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, Mr. Secretary?
I would just note that the majority of your question was highly disingenuous and loaded with suggestions that I very much don't agree with.
Your reaction, Colonel.
What do you? I could care less if you agree with it or not. We don't have control of the strait, and for a senator, and I think it was the Senate Armed Services Committee, to ask the Secretary of War, "What is your plan to get it open with?" is the most basic, elementary entry question. And for him to say, "Oh, I don't accept the premise of it," then what do you not accept? I mean, I'd actually missed that part there. But the fact is, it's closed, and it has been from the beginning, and it never was in the 47 years before we started this foolish war that should never have started. So it's a very valid question of what are you going to do to get it open? Now, I can tell you militarily, nothing. There's nothing we can do to force it open, which is because we tried everything under God's son to get it done the first time, whether that's all the naval power, carrier air power, the land-based power, these bunker busters, F-35s, F-16s, F-22s, A-10s, you name it. We tried everything. Nothing has succeeded, and nothing's going to succeed because there are so many different ways that Iran can keep that thing closed. It's actually not very hard to keep it closed for various reasons that we could get into if you want. But the bottom line is he doesn't have an answer, because the only answer to actually get it back open is the one that the president and the government hates more than anything. And that's to either agree to some kind of a negotiated terms that's acceptable to Iran, or you literally just walk away and pretend like there's a victory, like you said, which ironically is what I hope they do, because it's the least damaging of all the things they could do. But it's going to be one of those two things. It won't be the military.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what really set me off on yesterday's show, because we were showing these videos to the audience, was the clip that we're about to watch. So here's Hegseth saying the exact opposite of everything you just said. Take a look.
Oh, man.
Can you just confirm for the committee that there is not a military mechanism or means to reopen the strait?
There most certainly are military means by which we could open the strait. Both on targets on land and also with what we do with our naval capabilities, not to mention our naval blockade.
Why haven't you done, if that's true and that's not what has been testified to us in private briefings, why haven't you done that already?
Ultimately, a preferred long-term approach would be a deal where they open it up.
Your own intelligence estimates, as has been reported, suggest that in fact, the Iranians are in a position to hold out for potentially years. This is a high-risk strategy to hope that this economic pressure will eventually cause them to voluntarily reopen the strait, when there's plenty of evidence from military history to show that countries that are being attacked or invaded or occupied are actually willing to put up with a whole lot of economic misery in order to preserve national pride.
Well aware, we understand all of those historical case studies, and it's not just economic pressure. There's military pressure, diplomatic pressure. We certainly have a lot more military pressure we can bring to bear if the president were to choose to do so.
I'd like your reaction to that, but also I want to talk about Hegseth's qualifications to even serve in this role. But start off with your reaction to what he said.
Yeah, well, first of all, you can tell he's stumbling over his words, trying to find something to say to just get away from the obvious answer, which the senator laid out there. There's no way you can answer it any other way than I can't open it up, or we would have. It's absurd to the highest degree to even try and claim, yeah, we could have opened it up militarily, but we chose not to because we wanted to find some other path, even though we went to war for 40 straight days, bombed 14,000 targets, and did all this stuff that we did. But we stopped because, I don't know, we want to try other things. That's obviously absurd at face value. And for him to then to claim otherwise is just, I mean, it's lying. I mean, I don't think there's any other way you can put it.
So I remember when Trump named Hegseth as his defense secretary, and typical thing happened. The left was making a big deal about it in a negative way. The right was, cheerleading the idea. They loved it. And I looked at his record and I couldn't really understand how he was qualified to serve as defense secretary. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, I know that he was in the military, but serving in the military alone doesn't mean that you have the proper qualifications to make the right decisions when it comes to questions of war and peace. He was an anchor over at Fox. I'm guessing Trump likes the way he looks. But other than that, all we've seen from Hegseth, especially as it pertains to the war against Iran, is taking a bad situation and making it far worse with his ridiculous rhetoric that does not reflect well on the American people. That's my opinion, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, when he first was listed, and then we started seeing a lot of these interviews where he's on television, and then during his confirmation hearing, et cetera, I'll be honest, I said, you know what? Let's give him a chance, because the last thing that we need is to somebody who's going to come in there and just be like Lloyd Austin, the guy before, that looks great on paper, coming in and out of industry, and all they do is just perpetuate the same things over and over. They just watch over this thing. They don't do anything to reform it, to bring it into the modern world. And I said, that's probably the last thing we need. Maybe we need a new guy who had 2 combat tours where he had a Bronze Star Medal for valor, which means that he knows what real combat is like. So I thought, okay, maybe if he understands how things work at the pointy end of the spear, and he at least has a field grade officer's understanding, maybe he can come in and do what he said. Because I said this at the time, if he does what he says in his hearing, then maybe he can do something good, which is to bring the warrior ethos back, to bring accountability back, to be doing modernizing the Department of Defense, et cetera. That's when it was still Department of Defense. And he didn't do any of those things. He came in and fired a bunch of people. You could tell he was just loving the job. Then he brings in this TV crew all the time, and does the makeup and all that kind of thing. And then one of the very first things he did was this whole Signalgate thing, and that's when I said, "Oh my God!" Now I felt foolish for saying give him a shot, because the very first thing he did is use a Signal chat for operational planning, and it was self-evident. Everybody who's been in the military long enough to be a private or a second lieutenant knows that is absolutely forbidden, and you go to jail if you do operational stuff over a civilian app. I mean, everybody knows that. And then he lied about it and said, well, it wasn't operational. And so that's when I said, all right, that I was fooled. And he has no character, and is not willing to admit when he made a mistake or do the right thing in the first place. And it just went downhill from that point.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.